Hello and welcome to this lab demonstration on using alarms. After completing this lab video, you will be able to use alarms in vCenter so that you can get notified if certain conditions are detected or certain events occur. Alarms are a great tool where you can get notified in case of any issues. Notification options include showing alarms either as a warning or as a critical alarm, sending email notifications, sending SNMP traps, or executing scripts. You can even configure advanced actions where you define how you want vCenter to react to a given alarm. For example, you can power on, suspend, reset, reboot, shut down, and even migrate a virtual machine when a certain condition or event is identified. I strongly recommend that you pay attention to alarms, that you set up customized alarms tailored to your environment so that you get early notifications in case of upcoming issues. This will allow you to proactively take steps before you run into trouble. In most environments, resource utilization is rising over time, and you don't want to realize that you ran out of resources only when it happens. You want to know about impending bottlenecks in good time. For this lab, you should be familiar with the vSphere client user interface, and you should know how you can monitor and control virtual machine resources in vCenter. In the first task of this lab exercise, we will create a new alarm that monitors a condition to occur on a certain virtual machine. The condition will be 50% CPU load for at least 30 seconds. In the next task, we will generate high CPU load on the monitored virtual machine so that the alarm is triggered. Then we will acknowledge the alarm, stop the cause of the heavy CPU load, and verify that the alarm does not appear again. Then we will create an alarm that monitors an event that occurs on any virtual machine in a specific data center. The event that we will be looking for is that a VM in the data center is suspended. In the fourth task, we will trigger the alarm that we configured in the previous task. We will suspend the virtual machine in the data center. Then we will power on the virtual machine and verify that the alarm disappears in the triggered alarms pane of the data center, and that under tasks and events, the alarm changes from yellow to green. In the final task, we will disable the two alarms that we created. I'm sure I provided you enough good reasons to watch the following video on using alarms. Now, let's get started. We want to perform the configuration on vCenter server SA VCSA01. So the first step is to connect to this server. Then we log in as administrator at vsphere.local. In this task, we will power on a virtual machine, Win1002. Then we will create an alarm definition for this virtual machine. The alarm should generate a warning when the CPU usage is above 50% for 30 seconds. So in the vSphere client, in the navigator pane, we have to make sure that we are in VMs and templates, which we are. Then we expand our data center, the ICM data center in this case. We expand our lab VMs, and here we see the virtual machine Win1002. We want to power on this virtual machine, so we right-click it, we select power, and we click power on. While the virtual machine is booting, we will create an alarm definition for this virtual machine, so we right-click the virtual machine, we select alarms, and then we click new alarm definition. In the wizard, we first have to give a name to the alarm definition. We will call our alarm Win1002. You could enter a description, and in a production environment, I strongly encourage you to type in a very good description so that when you want to enable or disable alarms, you can easily identify what this alarm definition is used for. We see that the target type of the alarm is virtual machine, and the target or targets, in this case it's just one, is our virtual machine Win1002. We click Next. And now, under Alarm Rule 1, we have to select a trigger. In our case, we want to monitor VM CPU usage. Now we select an operator. In our case, we say is above. And now we enter a percentage. So 50%. And we can select the time. For how long do we have to exceed the threshold? And we select 30 seconds. Note here that you could add an additional trigger. We won't do that, but just to show you, when I click this, I get a new line. So like we did up there, we could select a new trigger, and then we would have operators and so on, depending on the type of the trigger that we select. We don't need that, so let me remove this line. And now we have to specify what should happen when we meet this condition. And in our case, we want to trigger an alarm, and it should be displayed as a warning. You see that we can select the severity here. The other option would be to show it as critical. Note that you could also send email notifications. You could generate SNMP traps. You could even run a customized script just to show you when you activate this option, you can then refer to a script, which of course you first have to upload. And down here you have advanced actions. When I click this again, just to show you, then you can select one of the predefined actions that fit this type of alarm definition. This type of alarm definition was for virtual machines, so for obvious reasons we see virtual machine related actions. And as you can see, we can migrate the VM, we could power it off, we could power it on, reboot the guest, reset the VM, shut down the guest, suspend the VM. Lots of options. We don't want to perform an advanced action, so I have to remove the line here that I created when I clicked Add Advanced Actions. Otherwise, our next button is grayed out because we have an incomplete configuration. So we are done here. All we want to do is trigger an alarm and show it as a warning. So we click Next. And now we get to the reset rule. So what should happen when the warning or critical condition state is no longer met? Well, then we want to reset the alarm to normal. But you see that in addition, again, you could send email notifications, generate SNMP traps, run a script, or use advanced actions again. In our case, we just want to reset the alarm to green. So we click Next. We can review our configuration. And note that over here, you have the option to enable the alarm or disable the alarm. So you can configure alarm definitions, but you do not want to enable them, activate them at this point in time. Then they are just added to the list of predefined alarms. It's there, but it's not active, and you can enable it at a later point in time. We want to enable the alarm right away, so we click Create. Now let's verify that the alarm definition has been created. So we select the virtual machine in the Navigator pane. Then we click the Configure tab. And here we can select alarm definitions. We can search for the alarm name. So let's do that. We click the search symbol here. And now we enter Win10. And that shows us the alarm that we created. Remember, we named our alarm Win1002. We can expand it here. And then we see the alarm rule. So CPU usage above 50% for 30 seconds. we successfully created this new alarm definition. In the next task, we want to trigger the alarm that we just created. To reach the required CPU usage threshold, we will start a script on Win1002, and that script will cause very high CPU load. Then we will verify that the alarm is triggered, acknowledge the alarm, and stop the script on the virtual machine. So first thing we need to do is we go to the Summary tab and we open a web console. On the desktop of the virtual machine, we have this script CPU busy. We right-click it and we open it with a command prompt, and that will cause high CPU load now. So let's go back to our vSphere client. The virtual machine is selected. CPU load will increase now. Now we click the Monitor tab of the virtual machine. And you see that here we have triggered alarms. So we select this, and now we wait for the alarm to be identified. Remember, we have to hit that threshold or exceed that threshold for at least 30 seconds. So it will take some time until the alarm sets off. Let's see if the condition is already met. So I refresh the page and you can see that the triggered alarm is shown now. Severity is warning as we configured, and the alarm name is Win1002. Now in here we can have a look at events that are related to this virtual machine. And we can see that the last event was the alarm that changed from green to yellow. So this alarm set off. And it's the alarm Win1002. And down here we can see that there are no related events. Now let's go to the virtual machine, stop the script, and now have a look at the virtual machine in the vSphere client. Let's go back to triggered alarms. Let's select the alarm and acknowledge it. You can see when the alarm was triggered. You can see when we acknowledged the alarm and who acknowledged the alarm. Our CPU load isn't high anymore. We stopped the script, and that's why we do not see a new alarm coming in. Let's verify that. Let me refresh the triggered alarms, and you see that there are no items to display anymore. Earlier we had a warning sign here at the virtual machine in the navigator pane, and this also disappeared. Let's have a look at the events. And we see that the alarm changed from yellow to green, that the alarm was acknowledged. So sorry, down here we had the green to yellow. This is when the alarm set off. Then we acknowledged the alarm. And the top entry is the one that changed back from yellow to green because the high CPU load is not present anymore. We can close the console tab. And now we want to create an alarm definition that monitors an event that occurs on any virtual machine of the ICM data center. Specifically, we want to trigger the alarm when a virtual machine in this data center is suspended. We will configure the alarm in a way that it is reset to green when the virtual machine is powered on again. So in the navigation pane, we select the ICM data center. We click the Configure tab, and we are now at the alarm definitions for the data center. And now we can click Add to add a new alarm definition. So let's do that. We click Add. We enter a name for the alarm definition. Let's use VM suspend. target type should be virtual machines. Even though we configure this alarm definition at the data center level, it is about virtual machines. But as you can see below now, it's about all virtual machines on data center ICM data center. We click Next. Now we have to configure the trigger, and we want this alarm to set off when a VM is suspended. We can find the trigger VM suspended in the power connection state category. You could also enter a string up there to search, but in this case we know that it's here. So we select VM suspended. We want to trigger the alarm and show it as warning. And just like we did on the previous alarm, we will not configure any email notifications or SNMP traps. We're not going to run a script, and we're not using any of the predefined advanced actions. So we are done here, and we can click Next. Now we configure the reset rule. We want this alarm to be reset to green if the VM is powered on again. Let's use the search function this time. I type in powered. Now we see several matches, and we want to select VM powered on. So we want to reset the alarm to green if the VM is powered on. We're not going to do anything else, so we click Next. Now we can review the settings. Note that the alarm again is enabled, and we click Create. Let's check whether we find the alarm in the list. So I click the search icon and I'll enter VM suspend. Here is the alarm that we created. It applies to all virtual machines in data center ICM data center. The alarm is triggered if a VM is suspended. The alarm is sent as a warning, and when the VM is powered on, then we set the alarm back to green. In the steps of the next task, we will trigger the alarm that monitors the ICM data center for suspended virtual machines. We will suspend virtual machine Win1002, which is part of this data center, and then verify that the alarm sets off. Then we will power on the virtual machine and make sure that the alarm changes to green. So in the navigator pane, we right-click the virtual machine Win1002, we select Power, and we click Suspend. We have to confirm. Now let's check whether the alarm was triggered. We select the ICM data center. In the navigator pane, we click the Monitor tab, and under Issues and Alarms, we select Triggered Alarms. In the recent tasks at the bottom, you can see that the virtual machine is still being suspended. So only when the virtual machine actually is suspended, we will see the alarm. But anyway, we have to refresh this screen. So I do it once while the suspension is still taking place. And you see that no alarm shows up. So now we wait until the virtual machine is fully suspended, and then we will refresh again. The task completed, so let's refresh the screen, and now we see the alarm. The alarm name, VM suspend, we see the object, so Win1002 is the virtual machine that is suspended. The severity is a warning. We see the triggered time. Now we power on the virtual machine again. So I right-click Win1002 in the navigator pane. Also note that we have the warning sign at that VM. Now we select power and click power on. So the virtual machine got powered on and it is booting. You can already see in the navigator pane that there is no warning sign anymore. Let's refresh the triggered alarms. And we see that the alarm is gone. Now under tasks and events, let's look at the events. And we can see that the last event is that alarm called VM suspend on virtual machine Win1002 changed from yellow to green. That is because we powered on the virtual machine again. So in the last task of this lab, we will disable the two alarms that we created. We do not want to delete them, we just want them to be inactive. This enables us to re-enable them at a later time. So our first alarm was for the object Win1002, for that virtual machine only. So when we select that virtual machine and we click the Configure tab, and then Alarm Definitions, then we can see the alarm here, Win1002. So we select the alarm and then we click Disable up here. And you can see that there is a column enabled and it says disabled for this alarm. Now we do the same for the second alarm. We configure this alarm at the ICM data center. So we go to the Configure tab, we select Alarm Definitions, and here we see our alarm, VM suspend. So we select it, we click Disable, the status changes over here from enabled to disabled, and this way the two alarms that we created are now disabled. They are inactive. Congratulations! You have completed the Using Alarms lab demonstration video. In the first task of this lab, we created an alarm to monitor a condition that occurs on a specific virtual machine. Then we triggered the alarm, in this case by hitting a CPU load threshold. Then we configured an alarm to monitor an event that occurs on any virtual machine in a data center. Again, we triggered the alarm, this time by suspending a virtual machine of the monitored data center. Finally, we disabled both alarms. You now know how to use alarms in vCenter. Note that we created relatively simple alarm definitions in this lab. Our alarms only generated warnings in vCenter. Remember that you have lots of additional options. You can send email notifications and generate SNMP traps. You can execute scripts or predefined, so-called advanced actions when an alarm is triggered. So there is more to explore regarding alarms in vCenter. Monitoring resources and taking proactive steps to avoid imminent problems is an important skill, and alarms can be very useful in achieving this goal. Thank you for watching this lab demonstration video. I hope the knowledge acquired here will help you with your daily job assignments, and good luck as you continue your journey in VMware world.